See if we're live, and I think we're live. Let me just double check really quick. Okay, cool. Welcome. So is it Ronette?
Yes, my name is Ronit. Hi, John.
Good to meet you. Great. Yeah,
Likewise.
it's awesome to have you on, man. I think so. So we've been chatting for a while. I think we were. I forget how we got introduced. I think maybe you reached out to me in Twitter.
Yeah, I think.
As soon as I saw your product, I wanted to get you on because right now we're doing there's a lot of World Cup stuff going on. Wanted to get a pro sports terminal, and that's exactly what you guys are doing. So maybe if we start out, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, what you're working on, and yeah, and what you're building.
Right. Of course. Thank you so much, John. So yeah, I'm Ronit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DG3. DG3 is a trading terminal for pro traders trading sports prediction markets. So essentially, what we want to solve for is are these three segments. So when you look at a trading workflow, there are three parts of it. The first part is basically the research part, second is intelligence, and the third is execution. In the life cycle of a trading workflow, traders typically come across multiple gaps while they are discovering a market, while they are forming some conviction and placing trade. So as a trader in my past life, I wanted to basically solve these gaps along with my co-founder Charan. And yeah, that's what we are building DG3 here for, a trading terminal for sports prediction markets.
And you guys have an interesting backstory, right? So we got into a little bit on our call, but you're experienced founders and you've scaled a company before. I think to a
Right,
pretty high
right.
degree, like in the multi millions. Do you want to kind of get into that a little bit? Because I think you're not a new founder. You basically you've built significant products before.
Right. Of course. Right. So I'll give a little bit of introduction for myself, and then I'll dabble into our product. Right. So I started
Yeah.
my career as a proprietary trader. Traded WTI Brent crude oil contracts back in 2014-15. Uh, Wanted to evolve professionally beyond being a trader. So worked in multiple startups based out of India, two of which end up becoming unicorns. So I worked in insurance segment, I worked in education sector, and lending largely. So I met my co-founder Charan in around 2023, and we were introduced by a common friend. And both of us were, I would say, sports fans. We wanted to build something in the sports industry, so we decided to basically study this industry. And we came across a gap, which was a lot of traders who trade sports markets and win them get banned by these sports books. So we saw a lot of budding sports prediction liquidity protocols coming up who wanted to essentially solve this problem. Initially, we wanted to be asset light. So what we did was we aggregated these sports protocols, I would like to call them, and sort of worked on cracking distribution. I come from a background of distribution largely, and for 2 years we built about a basic, I would say, a small business, about 30 million plus in volume, a few $100,000 in revenue, and in the last, by the end of last year, we started seeing this surge in poly market. While Charan has been a poly market trader for last, I think, 4 years, poly market got very popular around, I think, end of 2025. Right. During that time, there was a question of whether prediction markets as an asset class will survive. Uh, but I think they did a pretty well job at that, and it not just survived; it actually boomed to an extent where it's become basically the talk of the town. And we started seeing a lot of our existing traders who traded with us place trades on Polymarket, right? So we realized that we are essentially aggregating the entire sports trading liquidity, and we added Polymarket as well in our previous product, which went by the name of DG Predict, by the way. But when we studied that product, we realized that pro traders and semi pros essentially need something more than what the product offers. And having traded, just a second, yeah. Having traded on these markets before, I saw an opportunity over here, and Charan and I we basically discussed on how we could basically offer a sports trading terminal for pro traders.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys have good volume. I mean, like 25 million volume is huge. That's definitely in the top terminal products right now. I think I haven't checked recently, but a lot of the terminals in the Polymarket Builders program, 25 million is huge for them. If they got 25 million, that would be a big deal. So clearly, your product is finding a good market, and there is demand for these more kind of like niche terminals that focus on a specific category in the in prediction markets like sports. And I find it interesting that you are focused exclusively on sports, that you
Yeah, yeah,
decided that you're not going to do any of the other categories,
right.
politics or anything like that. Sports is like where it's at. Do you want to kind of get into that more?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. So the reason is very simple. We understand sports. We've been in this industry for some time. And when I say that, we've not observed the industry from a length. We've been right inside basically the mud, right? We have active traders who've traded with us. We understand whale, non-whale behavior. We believe that as founders, we can crack this market better, and that's why sports. And in fact, honestly speaking, sports in itself is also a very big market. I could pick up simply like I could just pick up basketball and then crack a product properly well, and the and product that works for basketball will look different from the product that works for, let's say, soccer, football, or for that matter even esports. So we would want to actually go down a bit more niche into, let's say, one, two, or three of sports categories, crack that first, move up a little bit towards all sports, and then explore other category segments. So that's the psyche.
and how are you able to kind of secure these users for your platform? Like how have you been able to kind of, clearly you're getting good volume. What has your strategy been in terms of kind of, securing the sports traders, like the professional
Sure.
sports traders? Because again, like with Polymarket, it like things are starting to get segmented, right? Like you have certain traders that are very good at political trading,
Right.
and they stick to that. A lot of
Right.
them don't cross over into other, like some of them do, but many of them like will stick to what they know. So how are you able to target the sports trading demographic?
Perfect. I think that's a beautiful question, right? So essentially, see, when you look at us, while DG3 terminal right now is powered only by Polymarket, the team is working on backend to make other venues live soon. Polymarket terminal, this product is actually new. It's just a month old. We launched this terminal on 9th of June. We've been working with other sports protocols like Azuro, Overtime, SXBet for about, I think, about 1.5 2 years now. So if you look at sports trading ecosystem as whole, Web3 ecosystem is actually really very small. About 90-95% of the entire volume largely is in the traditional sports book industry. So we looked at it from that lens, arrived at few high level strategies which I can discuss right now, largely around building content authority on mediums where our traders are already present. They're either lurking around or they're looking for some information, and we built some content authority. Beyond that, historically for the past few years, we've been part of few closed sports trading groups in general who have been giving us feedback on the kind of products they operate in, what more do they want on the product, right? So sort of started with our test case of first alpha 100 users, While now we have more, but we started with that in these closed groups largely. So, and strategically, when I say content and authority, I mean it by building organically as well as by selecting certain, I would say, prediction market legitimate voices in the ecosystem, not just Twitter, but across different mediums, right? Substack for that matter, Reddit is a medium, Twitter, Instagram also, right? So we are building that authority through these, I would say, ambassadors.
What is the so what do you think is the defining thing that a terminal can bring to the table that is going to give these traders the biggest edge? I often hear people say, okay, well, if you're a trader, if you're a polymarket trader, you should be using as many platforms as possible to try and arb opportunities or to try and find discrepancies between these platforms. Some platforms are faster than others. Some might have advantages over others, provide different automated tooling, etc. What do you think in your category? What do you think the greatest edge that you can provide to someone trying to get an edge in sports, I guess?
Perfect, man. Okay, so there are two questions sort of wrapped in that
Yeah.
main question, right? The first being that this space is hyper competitive. Of course, it is genuinely hyper competitive space. My belief is that venues and terminals have started segregating already. And among terminals also, I see a lot of terminals picking their niche. As a startup, if you want to crack the terminal space, you can't afford to stay broad. You can't say that we are terminal for all categories. I personally believe that. So you will start seeing niche terminals for different categories, right? But within that category also, what is the differentiation, right? So let's say first, let me demarcate DG3 as the go-to sports trading terminal for prediction markets, right? So all the whales, pro, semi-pro sports traders are welcome to DG3. We don't show any other markets apart from sports, by the way. But beyond that, right? Let's say what is the differentiation? Your question is largely that what are you doing differently from others? But before I answer that question, I'd like to first dabble on the fact that we spoke to 300 plus semi pros and pros who were trading with us for the last 2 years and try to understand from them what is the need in the terminal largely, right? So, without giving away too much on the product features, I'd like to talk about some insights, right? The first insight from Semi Pro was that discovery is not coincidental. What does that mean? That they don't land on the platform that, hey, let me take a trade and then search for categories. Semi pros are essentially very sure on what they want to trade for in the next week because they've been doing this for some period of time. Professionals, of course, as well. So the way to solve discovery is through intent-based search. So we basically started solving that through our terminal first. The next most important part after intent is that of forming conviction to place a trade. The initial journey has been scouting different websites, different research websites, then different sports websites for getting the right prices, then logging in and then placing a trade, right? If you could offer all of that inside a terminal, where when a user lands on the terminal discovers an edge for them. Now, edge is of course time bound. Not just that, it also offers them additional information, which is pretty standard from that perspective. But that extra 20%, which comes from exclusive sort of chat assistant that you can talk to, form conviction, and place a trade. Now, of course, you can place it manually or you can set up an automated interface for you to take trades. So we saw that this is primarily the problem right now, and we just answered those queries and built a product that was an answer to those insights.
How much of secure, so again, to kind of tie into the competitive aspect of the market, I built a terminal. We created a terminal called Facts.trade. And we found ourselves in a very competitive place with other terminals. Our volume was decent. Our volume was about 500,000, like for the first 2 weeks or so, which is not bad for someone who's just, bootstrapping or whatever, and just like, hey, like whip it out and here it is.
Of course.
But but we found it to be super competitive. And one of the strategies that we started to talk about was, okay, how are we going to get like traders to come on our platform? Like, are we going to have to do like old fashioned, like, take them out to dinner, like buy them stuff, like, what can we do to get your volume type of thing? Do you find, what level of relationship building do you have to do with traders to secure them and secure their volume on your terminal? Like, do you have to, like, do you find that you have to kind of really go out there on the ground and be like, look, I know this trader's a big guy, this is a whale, let's schmooze him a little bit, let's wine and dine this person? Is that something that is a strategy that that you guys have employed?
See, if your ideal customer profile is pro and semi pro, you have to treat them as your key accounts, and you have to offer them that concierge service. The hospitality has to be top notch. To In fact, even as realistic as going out and meeting them, right? A lot of the traders that we work with, there's a blend of both. Some of these traders are sort of remotely operating globally and are not very much interested in sort of getting doxed. Many are, in fact, I would say 75-80% are. And in fact, when you operate in this segment, I would say one of the best strategies would be to essentially host a sort of a dinner, move to different cities, host a dinner, invite 10, 20 traders, show them your product, and just onboard them, right? In this particular segment, when you're not going the other retail, I won't say retail, but the casual route of, let's say, acquiring 1 million users who can do $100 of volume versus, let's say, 10,000 users who can do, let's say, 100K volume per month. Right.
Yeah,
So I agree with you. In fact, so our relationship with our traders is very close. So and we intend to sort of keep it that way, because what it does is it allows us to realize the problems faster and solve them, instead of being in a place where the trader left the platform, we don't know why, and now we are clueless.
yeah. I mean, I always go back to the Bloomberg terminal, right? The Bloomberg
100%.
terminal. Yeah, I feel like that's the model which I feel is the best for people building data terminals or kind of pro trading tools. I still think it's the best model. And it's so sticky because now it's like this elite network of people. They built this sort of elite network of traders. They can all
Yeah.
communicate and chat with each other. I've heard that people are selling Ferraris. Like sometimes they sell Ferraris on the Bloomberg chat. So I'm what type of things are you doing? Kind of like playing into this. Do you plan
So
to add features to kind of build that network, like like social features or things like that, to stick these people to your terminal?
yeah, yeah. So the way to think about it is, okay. But before that, let me come back to the Bloomberg analogy, right?
Oh
So when
yeah,
it
go ahead.
started, obviously, it was simply a software service which had some features that attracted traders. Eventually, you see a lot of competitors coming in after a few years, right? But the I personally believe, having used it, that one of the key important features for that terminal has been its chat. Because if you look at Bloomberg Terminal as such, most of its features you'll see it in a lot of competitors, right? But the Bloomberg chat is super powerful. You can essentially do a contract. It's like a handshake deal. If you write something in that chat, that you're liable basically in the court of law, right? So Bloomberg chat sort of became a mode where you can do like a one-to-one deal. It holds true in court of law, and you have to adhere to whatever you just committed through chat. And in that chat, you know that you're not speaking to, let's say, somebody who's newbie. You're speaking to basically folks who've been there, done that, the stalwarts in the business, generally in terms of trading communities, right? Now coming back to, I think your question on how do we look at DG3 as an offering relative to that. So I would say we are still very early. I wouldn't even want to compare ourselves with, let's say, Bloomberg Terminal right now. The way we are approaching this is we have we have essentially isolated down on the ICP. And in that ICP, what is more important is how does the needs of that ICP evolve, right? So beyond intelligence, what else can we offer? We can offer leverage. Then we can look at what are the other pockets of our ICP. So our ICPs are not just retail traders; they work as employees or professional traders in some other firms. So is there something that you can offer to these prop trading firms or other trading firms, which sort of becomes like a holistic ecosystem where we onboard those firms to prediction markets? So there are multiple opportunities, right? And if players, builders continue to build in this ecosystem, everyone will end up finding their own niche. We don't want to move towards the social element of it right now. That is not what we believe. And I wouldn't tie Bloomberg Terminal Chat as social. It is more, I would say, a professional network. It's not like a social network. And that is something that we are open to looking at. So, sort of evolving more towards pro traders.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point that you brought up, in terms of how powerful the Bloomberg chat actually is, as even an accountability measure for people using that that platform. Um, in terms of like what you guys are building right now, um, what type of things are you planning to add in the future? Are you planning to add, for instance, and I know you kind of got into it just now, but what is your opinion of offering products like parlays or things like that? I think you mentioned leverage just now too, which is good. I mean, leverage would be super helpful. So I'm just curious if if you have any plans to add products like that, if you want to get into that more.
See, we are an intelligence layer built on top of venues. For example, imagine Polymarket, Calshield, Myriad Markets, Azure Time, etc. We are an intelligence layer on top of that. As of now, we are not creating new markets. So if you look at it that way, parlays, combos, etc., the venues will provide. We extract the intelligence out from that venue and from internet and from our proprietary models and serve it to the traders. Having said that, there are a few interesting things that we want to do. One of them is correlation, right? So across different markets, let's say if you are, and it is sort of a subset or a superset of parlays, because let's say if you are in a position and that position is correlated to some other position that you are in, we sort of flag it or we highlight it so that you can take a trade. That is a feature that we are building right now. It's not ready yet. And the second is chat. I'd love to actually show the product,
Yeah, yeah, let's
if
yeah
that makes
go.
sense.
Yeah, that would be great. Let me know if you. So I think if you click that thing, it'll pop up, and then I just have to accept it.
All right, perfect. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
This is the discovery page. Don't look at today's PNL. I don't know. Do you follow esports?
I don't follow. I wish I did because I know there's a lot of money to be made there, but I don't follow
Yeah,
esports.
apparently not, because I'm not. I've been not wise today. So the esports World Cup is on, and and I think it's Dota. It's Dota 2 going on right now, and Falcons is, I think, ranked third. They played Vici Gaming. Vici Gaming is out of top 10, top 12. It's a team from China. New, I think they changed their roster or something, right? And I was trading Falcons and Vici today, and that was a big upset for me. So that's why my PNL today doesn't look good. But anyway, so I'll talk a little bit about the discovery engine, right? So let's say if you look at it, we have envisioned this as very similar to Google search, right? If you basically look at it, that's exactly what you will see. You will see what markets are you watching today, and in the onboarding journey, we essentially take preferences from the user. So, John, I know you onboarded on the terminal. So, in that journey, we ask 5 preferences, right, in terms of sports categories. So, what you see here largely are the preferences that I gave, right? So, let's say I want to trade on Counter Strike. right? So what it does is it gives me basically the markets that are live right now, and on which users are trading. So this is one of the easiest way, or you can essentially go for, I don't know if is it live on Polymarket Argentina, right? So this is one of the markets. On the left, so as you click that, you enter the intelligence panel, right? And what you see on the left is basically our edge finder, right? What you see over here is an edge that we have highlighted to the user, right? So for, let's say, Spain versus Argentina match, on the market total goals, under 2.5 goals, there is an edge of 0.04 cents. Not that big of an edge, but yeah. Let's see in corners. Do you see an edge? Yeah. Anyway, right. So that is an edge that essentially, if you would like, you can take. So let's say if you click that market, this intelligence pane opens. Here we show the chart. This is the chart that I was talking about, which will come soon. On the right, we essentially the user can essentially look at the depth of the liquidity, see if there are sharps who have already taken any trades, and what is the trading pressures. Pretty standard over here, right? At the But I would say the main feature that will come out is around the chat, where essentially what we are doing is a trader looks at the edge, checks out if there is sharp movement on it or if there is any trade movement on it, and still has some doubts. Uh, and those doubts are not sort of like standard public internet search. You have some mental model in your mind and you have some query. You can just ask that query to the chat. Let's take a look at, let's say, some esport games right now.
I'm actually curious in terms of the different categories of sports. What categories, and this might be a question for later, but what categories do you think are the most interesting right now? Because there's so many categories of of different sports. Like there's esports, for instance, which I think is one of the most under discussed categories. But I'm curious what your take is based on what you've been watching your users doing and what you've been observing.
So yes, esports is like this fast growing small category. Um so the esports World Cup that I spoke about, Saudi Arabia arranges it, organizes it. This year it's happening in hurry because of the war. The prize pool for that tournament is $80 million, right? That is the kind of money that I would say that is new to the esports ecosystem, and because of it, it attracts a lot of sharp players. And when I say sharp players, I mean gamers. And because of that, it's created an entire ecosystem of trading around esports as well, right? The top three sports are Counter Strike, Dota 2, League of Legends. Then there is Valorant and a few more other subcategories. Um, and yeah, so it's a, I would say, annual $400 million market, I would say, right now. Smaller compared to, let's say, the likes of NFL, IPL, NBA, etc., but very fast growing.
Would you say it's one of the fastest growing sports markets, like in terms
It
of what
is
you're observing?
it is the fastest growing sports market.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, I've heard that Saudi Arabia is into this as well because I know that the MBS is a huge esports player himself.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they're spearheading that.
We have Dota 2 today. Let's look at. In this market should have been live. Yeah. So the World Cup that's going on, this is the last quarter final that's happening between BetBoom and NGX. Right. Let's see. We have. So what we are also doing is we are streaming these markets live. So a trader can essentially look at these markets, literally what's happening, and they can place a trade based on whatever the information they gather from these streams. Right. So here what you see is basically sharps placing a trade on a particular, yeah, on this particular event, right? So this sharp that goes by the name of Ox Heavy has a closing line value of plus 1.5 cents, has taken a trade on this particular market on NGX side, right? So they are essentially that person took a trade on NGX to win. Anyway.
Yeah, I again, it ties into the fact that I think that you're like what you're setting up here is like a
There's
unique.
an ad break going on right now. Okay.
Yeah, I think tying Twitch into this is a really good idea. And again, like these are things that you might not need for like political trading terminals, right? Like you wouldn't need like a Twitch stream or something like that, but for a sports trading terminal, you would need it. So I think there's two categories of terminals popping up right now. There's people that are trying to be the all-in-one, and then there's people that are trying to do the niche. And I see the value of the niche kind of offering because it's really hard to fit in all of the unique
Yeah. As a startup, John, it is practically impossible. It's a classic startup note rule book, right? That you have to pick up a decently big enough niche. In that niche, you have to basically ensure that you get 10, 20, 30% of the user base, and that is only possible when you offer a product that a larger player who's been in that industry doesn't offer. Otherwise, those traders are already present on that terminal or on that product. That's the only way to crack it, right? If you go purely horizontal, it's very difficult unless you're backed by, I don't know, $3-digit million capital, and you're okay to sort of build all categories in parallel, right? So I am a very, very strong believer of niche, and then essentially expanding it as you grow.
So we have a couple comments here. Let's see. Parlays have liquidity liability that the venue needs to accommodate. Polymarket has done that, so we're following suit. I think this is your co-founder right here.
No, he's a team member. Yeah, he's a team member.
Oh, team member. And then there's one more comment which I think is interesting, which is let me pull it up here. Esports may not have the numbers compared to FIFA, but as an unexplored market segment, there's huge edges to be scalped.
Yeah. So that also happens. So when I say, okay, now that brings me back to the previous point on trading strategies, right? So when you spoke about arbitrage, right? Largely in more evolved categories that have seen historic data, pricing is more or less solved to some extent, but it may get disturbed when new upcoming venues start basically market making themselves. But with esports as a category also, there is a lot of inefficiency across correlated markets. So arbitrage becomes one of the strategies. While we are not big fan of that, so when we look at terminal, we want to aggregate all venues, but we don't look at arbitrage as the selling point. It's like basically on the side that here's the intelligence for you to form conviction, and here arbitrage is like the salad on the side. That, by the way, there's this strategy, right? Don't want to make the entire positioning on just arbitrage, because honestly, as a trader, arbitrage was one of the strategies that I used to deploy while trading.
So I kind of have an industry question for you. I mean, you're building this product. I imagine you're looking at a lot of different platforms. Who do we integrate with? Who do we not integrate with? How do you determine that? Like, this is going to lead into another question that I have, but how do you determine like what protocols are worth integrating with, right? Like, you look at Polymarket, you look at like Kalshi or something like that. You guys are cross prediction market, I'm assuming. So, no, you're not.
No, yes, we are.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you choose what products to integrate? Like, what is the standard that they have to meet before you say, okay, we're going to use them in our offering?
Okay, so there are two examples, right? The classic bottom-up approach is we are already speaking to 300 plus pro traders right now, right? So the best thing is just ask them, right? So we keep interacting with them so often. We keep rolling out questionnaires to them, asking them which all platforms do they trade. If they trade on other platforms, why do they trade on those platforms? What product features do they like on it? Which product feature are they willing to pay for, right? To get reality checks on a lot of things. So there's one bottom-up approach that gives us a sense of what do they do? So there are typical 2-3 insights here. First insight is that there is a standard brokerage firm that all these traders trade with, right? And these for example, Robinhood for that matter in USA, right? And then these brokerage firms essentially tap into the liquidities of different venues like Polymarket, Kalshi, etc. The Robinhood is just one small example in one country. Like if you pick up Southeast Asia, you will find different names. If you pick up, let's say, South America, you'll find different names. Right? Europe, you'll find, and by the way, these are just regions. Right? Within Europe, also Spain will have a different brokerage firm, go-to brokerage firm versus France, Italy, etc. So there are different niches over here, right? If we look at it from that angle.
So yeah, and obviously you would need like a basic liquidity requirement, right? Like you're not, like there's so many prediction markets out there that that
yeah.
do
And
not
I
have
just
the
one,
liquidity.
one more point that I wanted to make before we go on that. In the top-down approach, essentially you look at typically 3-4 things. First, market breadth, right? So when we are targeting sports, we need to have those sports, and within the sports, we need to have different markets, right? Only moneyline markets across sports with a lot of liquidity is not enough, right? So one of the reasons Polymarket was able to sort of pick up over other sports, Web3 sports liquidity providers, was because of liquidity. On Polymarket, a trader can place, let's say, a trade up to one trade of $100K without any price movement, which was not possible in a lot of other Web3 sports protocols. So sort of that work, but Web3 sports protocols, other sports protocols, they sort of championed on the depth of markets. So over there, you could go into player props, different kinds of parlays, different kinds of markets that Polymarket couldn't or did not start with initially. Even today, the depth on these protocols is significantly higher than that of Polymarket. So you sort of try to balance both because sports traders need both. And yeah, essentially liquidity and markets. If you solve these two problems, then from a venue perspective, you have aggregate. Then the remaining problem is essentially the intelligence layer, which is right now in the minds of people or in Excel sheets or in different models that they have built on their laptops. You sort of take that out, give them an interface to dabble with, work with, brainstorm with, and then that becomes the home for that particular trader.
So again, so I think so we're almost out of time here. I think we have, usually we go about 40 minutes, but I do have another question to ask you because I want to get your general take on where things are going with prediction markets right now. What are you most excited about currently when it comes to this industry? And also how do you see things kind of growing or playing out over the next year, I guess, right? Because I feel like you mentioned this earlier. We were in a prediction market hype cycle at the end of 2025. That was very clear. Tons of people started products. People were launching coins like us, creating podcasting things. Like there was a lot of excitement. That excitement has tempered itself, right? Now we're in this period where people are kind of evaluating. They're like, okay, well, what is safe about prediction markets? What's not safe? How do we regulate this? So that's the place that we're kind of in right now. Do you feel the same way?
Right. So absolutely. So I'm absolutely bullish on this space, right? Uh, and and I'd like to sort of note one thing down, right? So so when I look at these cycles, you look at like hype cycles, a bull cycle, and then a bear cycle. They're not essentially bad per se, right? Because what a bull cycle does or the hype cycle does is it pushes the ecosystem forward, right? So if you look at it, what essentially happened, prediction market was an emerging asset class that got popularity. It established its hold in regulatory frameworks in certain pockets of the world, right? Uh, Kalshi got a license, Polymarket also got a license. A lot of prediction markets sort of became who were operating in these gray areas in a regulatory manner, sort of came on the right side of the law. lot of it, the popularity that brought to prediction markets essentially piqued interest in the minds of millions of traders that are out there, right? So if you speak to, let's say, a proprietary trader trading oil contracts, they are interested. They would want to know what's happening with Kalshi. I heard this prediction market. So what it does is it sort of circulates conversation within the right circles. When I say that, it means, let's say, the circles of trading firms, hedge funds, prop trading firms. So now they sort of start looking at prediction markets as a serious asset class that they can bring in, right, and trade on. So that's necessary. But with every hype and bull cycle, there are drifters that go away, and then there are certain genuine people who don't succeed because, for obvious reasons, let's say sometimes they don't have capital. Sometimes there are a lot of headwinds. They're against a competitor that is well capitalized. Sometimes it's just bad luck, right? It's not the right time, is what I would say, right? And that's okay, right? About in After that hype cycle, about 80-85% of the ecosystem sort of revamps, recalibrates, goes away, or double downs on it, on doubles down on its model, or they essentially figure out their own niche, right? So I think the way I look at it is, I want to give this entire ecosystem the space to evolve, and figure out. That has been with all cycles. Like, you'll see the same with the AI cycle also. You would have seen the same with crypto cycle as well, right? One important thing though I would like to sort of talk about is regulation is key. It is very important. It is important because when done right, it protects the rights and it protects the rights of consumers, and that is essentially a key. So the hype starts with, let's say, an unregulatory framework, but eventually that regulation is super important and necessary for sustainable growth of the industry.
So, um, what I wanted to just ask really quick, before we go, is we just got done with World Cup. I'm assuming World Cup was a huge liquidity event for you guys in terms of, volume and stuff like that.
Yeah, we've
I'm
launched that as well, yeah.
yeah, yeah. What is the next one? What is the next like big liquidity event that you guys are looking forward to? In the sports category.
So, see, World Cup is more like, let's say, once in a 4 year events, but sports has its own cycle, right? So the next thing that's coming up now is, there's already a thing going on, which is Esports World Cup, right? It's the biggest event in the esports ecosystem season. As we enter August, all the soccer league, football leagues start, right? EPL, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, etc. So then the volume picks up. Then with advent of September, NFL picks up. Advent of October, NBA picks up, while MLB dies down, right? So we are actually now entering into start of the season. So has that cyclicity, I would say, right? And then you obviously wait for the likes of Copa America, Hockey World Cup, Cricket World Cup, and all these events.
What's next for you guys? Like, what is like in terms of if people want to get in touch with you, if are you looking for people to partner with right now?
Yeah.
And if so, how can they best reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Twitter, Telegram, Discord. So we have our Twitter. You can write up to us on Twitter. You can join our Discord server. We have a very active, I would say, community, and a very, I would say, accessible and attentive community managers who would love to chat with all of you. Telegram as well, definitely. So yeah, we are there on all socials.
Um, well, yeah. So the last question I want to ask is: are you hiring right now? Are you because I know there's
Oh yeah,
if
yeah, we are
people
always hiring.
okay, okay, good, good, good. So if people want to get in touch with you about that, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool, awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We don't have our sponsor badge up yet, but this episode is sponsored by Banana Predicts, which is a pro trading terminal, and yeah, super fast terminal. Highly suggest you check it out. Yeah, so we should have all of our sponsor flags up shortly. But if you want to follow Banana Predicts, they're doing a 25K competition right now, and I believe you could still get access to it. I think you could still sign up to it, even though we're in the final days of the World Cup. This is their X. Highly suggest you follow these guys. It's a great team, and yeah, that's the sponsor for today. Uh, Ronette, it was great meeting you. It was great having you on. Thanks again for coming on, and yeah, super excited to see what you guys are building and what you continue to work on. Definitely keep me updated.
Likewise, John. Thank you so much for having me here. It was wonderful interacting with you.
Thanks. Have a good one.